What is up, everybody? The Chicago Bears had their final preseason game of the season, which means regular season is starting, and we're going to have a little breakdown and talk about it. Welcome in. I'm your host, Miss Alexis Jade. This is the Shecago Bears Podcast, and let's get started. The Chicago Bears had their last preseason game of the season. It feels weird saying season because the season hasn't technically started yet, but I don't know how else to word that. So the Bears had their last preseason game, and now we're officially ready to begin the season, and I'm so pumped. But before we get into the season, I have to go over how the preseason game went and kind of some little tidbits that I want to share from the game that I'm sure, you've also seen or heard elsewhere, and also you might have noticed in the game, but I figured why not have a nice little podcast to talk about the game. So without further ado, let's get started. The Bears played the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills starters were out for the first few snaps of the game. Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears offense and our starters were also out. I think overall it was all the coaches decided, which makes sense. I think majority of coaches do around the league, that your starters play the last game, because if they don't, you go 3 weeks without playing football before the first week of the game, and you really don't want that because players get rusty and you need the reps after a whole off season. Specifically speaking for the Bears, Justin Fields and some of the starters didn't even play the last preseason game, so definitely wanted them out there for the reps, which I think is good. Luckily, no major injuries came of it. That's always an A+ in my book, when people get the reps and no injuries, no major ones at least. A player was carted off the field for the Bears, but this sounds terrible to say, but luckily he wasn't a key starter on the team, so no major injuries in that sense. I will be getting into Justin Fields and the starting offense and their drive, but I feel like that's kind of been a hot take lately. I've seen a few other podcasts. I've also watched the game, obviously, and I know that everyone kind of has their own opinion on it, and it seems it's either you absolutely are 100% in on Fields or you are 100% not, and it almost seems like right now nobody has an in-between ground, and everyone is kind of blowing preseason games way out of proportion, in my opinion. So I do want to touch on it, and I will, but I'm going to wait later in the podcast to have that broken down a little bit, just because I'm going to go on my own little rant and voice my own opinion. I will be getting into all of that, and I will be breaking down all my thoughts, but first I want to get into everything else so that I can have my own little tangent and voice my opinions on what I think of Justin Fields' performance and the starting offense as a whole. But without getting too much into it, obviously we know the first drive of the Bears was anticlimactic. We were 3 and out. It wasn't exactly successful. The second drive was a little slower, but they did pick it up. We did end up scoring on a touchdown drive. Justin Fields was taken out as soon as we got to the goal line, which I personally thought was a bit of an odd move. Fields did take a really big hit after throwing the ball on that last play that he did participate in, but apparently that was not the reason for him being pulled. I don't know how much I believe that. Matt Eberflus said that wasn't the reason. Fields said that wasn't the reason, so I guess I have to believe them. However, it kind of seemed like it was probably a mix of Fields hitting his snap count that was set for the game, and also the hit he took that was unnecessary, and Flus said, that's it, you're out. Let's throw in Let's throw in Tyson Bagent. So Fields didn't get to finish the touchdown drive, but the Bears did score on that drive, and Fields did throw a nice pass to DJ Moore, who is a miracle worker and looks like he was down as soon as he caught the ball, and somehow his knee never touched the ground. He ran around, and I thought for a minute he was going to take it to the house again. He got tackled at the ankles, like a few 20 yards short, but DJ Moore being DJ Moore, what else do you expect? I will say, in terms of the starting offense, I love that DJ Moore has continued to show in flashes throughout training camp and the preseason. We've obviously had talk and hopes of him being this big weapon for Justin Fields, and he's done nothing so far but prove that. So the only hope I have is obviously that it translates into the regular season. But right now, I think we're on a really good path of looking at that Justin Fields 1-2 connection. DJ Moore is the real deal. That's all I got to say about that. The Bears starting O-line was in shambles. Now, they were in shambles to start the game. I thought they performed well-ish. Justin Fields was able to get some passes off. There were two that should have been caught that weren't. And overall, I think the Bears' offensive line held up pretty well. They didn't really leave up a lot of running room when we called those plays. It didn't seem like they were really getting that many pockets open for the RBs to get through, but it is what it is. We still managed to get by. For anyone that isn't aware, the starting offensive line was missing just about everyone minus Cody Whitehair and Braxton Jones. The rest of our entire starting offensive line was out. We were on, I kid you not, our fourth string center, if you count Cody Whitehair, who got moved to left guard because of the injuries. But we were down to our fourth string center on our last preseason game. It's not even the season yet, and we were down to our fourth string center. I did just recently I don't know what this was, but I did just recently, before starting the podcast, actually see a quote from Flus talking about how all options are open on the center position and that they're leaving everything on the table, and it's definitely something they're looking into, which in my mind, I think that means they're looking at that waiver wire because, as some of you might know, the Bears are number one on that waiver wire for a while, which means they have first dibs on players. I think they're going to really be looking at that center position, which in my opinion, they should have done a long time ago, but that's besides the point. If anything's been proven throughout training camp and preseason, it's the fact the Bears do not have enough depth on O-line. But all that being said, they did manage to get by, and Fields managed to come out relatively unscathed minus the hit he took. Still getting into the offense, backup, maybe QB2 quarterback, Tyson Bagent, performed pretty well. He got thrown in, like I said earlier, right in that last drive with the Bears and Justin Fields' unit. And I believe Fields and a few of the other starting first-team offense got pulled at the same time. Tyson got thrown in and scored on the touchdown drive. Overall, Tyson had a pretty nice game. He ran in for a touchdown. He would have had another if it wasn't dropped in the end zone right through his hands, but we're not going to go on a tangent about that. And he did have one interception. Granted, it's preseason. It means nothing, but he did have one interception. I know everyone right now is on the Tyson Bagent hype train, and I do find it interesting that Flus put him in right after Fields. I also find it interesting how long he played during the game. In my opinion, I think it was pretty obvious that they were trying him out for the QB2 position. I don't think you have him play that much if you're thinking he might make the roster or be QB3. I think that was a prove it moment for him, and I think he did enough to prove that he should be the backup QB. I also like that he used his legs a few times because obviously the offense is going to be catered to Justin Fields' strength, which means the quarterback being able to move, and I like that he's showing he can do that, which only helps his case. We might have a new QB2 on our hands. Hard to say. We'll find out soon because roster cuts are coming, but that's kind of what it looked like to me. I will say anyone who is sitting here trying to say that Tyson Bagent could push for the QB1 spot, slow your roll, buddy. I know he's looked sharp. He's looked really sharp and efficient so far in the preseason and training camp, but keep in mind the last game, the second game, I should say, he was playing against third stringers and below. The last game he was playing against second stringers. Nonetheless, it's still impressive, but they're also giving him, kind of the West Coast starter pack for a quarterback, which means, some screens, some play actions, some basic reads. I also think there was some reads. I mean, obviously, I'm not a quarterback guru by any means, but I thought there were some throws he could have made instead of others. But overall, he was distributing the ball, getting it out quick, which is really good. All that being said, he's not a quarterback one yet. And I hope he has a great, successful career, and I hope he's a great backup quarterback for Chicago. And I still have the utmost faith in Justin Fields. And I think you're crazy if in a preseason game and a half, if you want to call it of that amount of time of him playing, he's won over the spot of Justin Fields. You need to sit down and watch some more football. That's all I'm going to say. I don't have too much to say on the defense. I thought overall the defense had an all right showing. I saw an interesting mix of opinions on the defense. Some people thought that they performed really well. Some people thought that they were terrible. I think, in my opinion, it was meh. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, in my opinion, I don't really think the defense has proved enough in general for me to form a true consensus or opinion on them. I think the defense has had some really good moments. We've had some some moments where we've been able to sack the quarterback. We've had some takeaways, but overall, the defense has looked rusty. This was the first game that a lot of the starting defensive players were able to be on the field. They obviously were pulling people in and out of the game, so it's hard to tell exactly what the official starting unit can do because they didn't all play at the same time for an extended period of time together. Overall, in terms of the defense, I am still very confused. I think they're going to be a lot better than they were last year, but I still don't know how I feel about them going into the season. I think the defensive line is going to be a little bit better, but we still let a lot of plays by. But once again, like I said, not all the starters were playing. I'm really just torn on the defense. I really don't know what to think. And to me, the defense is really just, I have to see it to believe it. And I just do think we're going to be better than last year, but I just really hope we're even better than I anticipate. However, speaking of the defense, we did have two interesting little news moments, I guess you could say, in terms of the Bears and the defense. Travis Gibson, at the very beginning of the game, it was announced that the Bears have approved his request for a trade. I don't know what that means. I mean, obviously I know what that means. Obviously that's pretty straightforward, but I couldn't tell you. I don't know what I think of it. I think, honestly, at this point, I like Travis Gibson. I think he had a really good showing in the preseason games. Training camp, you didn't really hear much about him, but he showed out during the preseason game. I don't really know. I think I would like to personally keep him on the Bears as a depth piece and hope that he performs better than he did last year, and there's more of what's to come in the future of what he showed during the preseason. But I just don't know. And honestly, at this point, if he does choose to go somewhere else and somewhere else does pick him up, then I hope the best for him. I really like him as a person, as a player, and I wish the best for Travis Gibson. I would like to keep him here on the Bears, but I also do understand we don't necessarily need him, but hopefully I don't come to regret those words. So I guess we'll see. Another thing in, I guess, the rumor mill has been that we have been in talks regarding Chris Jones, a defensive edge rusher, and I don't know how much I believe it. I don't know how reputable the sources are. Poles obviously has a connection to Kansas City. I think I would believe it, and I do think it would be a smart move on Poles' part. The only thing I question is the amount of money Chris Jones is asking for, and if Poles is willing to cough that up. The other thing is, now with our offensive line and the status it is, I question if that's a move Poles is really going to want to, or not even want to make, but I question if that's a move Poles really thinks is going to be smart given the state of everything right now. I kind of think that maybe if we had other pieces solidified, he would jump on that, but I don't really think he will. I think he's going to be really focused on the offensive line, on waiver wires, and also on anyone else he might be able to pick up. Who knows? I don't know. Don't even know if that's, the rumors are true. But if they are, something to keep your eye out on. Who knows? I could be totally wrong, and we could end up with Chris Jones on our roster to start week 1 versus Packers. That would be pretty sick. You know what else is pretty sick? Subscribing to the YouTube channel, listening to the podcast on Spotify, hitting the like button, hitting the follow button on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, everything else. I really appreciate the support. I'm just getting started here. I appreciate everyone for following. I appreciate any comments and engagement. I like to respond to everybody. I respond all the time on Twitter. I'm really active on there. So yeah, thank you guys for supporting. Now, getting into the Justin Fields segment. Here's my little rant. Okay, everybody? Here we go. Justin Fields, and I'm going to try to keep this not on a 20-minute rant because we're already about 20 minutes in. Justin Fields is not a finished product. He has things to improve upon. Those are both true. It is okay to criticize when Fields doesn't perform his best, or we think he made some mistakes. It is okay to analyze and criticize and say things you think he could do better. That is all okay. It's also okay to support Fields and think he has room to improve. He's only going into his third season, his second year with the same offense and offensive coordinator. The first time since being in the NFL, he's had a good number one wide receiver, I should say, and a few pieces around him. We thought this would be the first season he had a decent offensive line going into the season. So far, that's a big concern that I have, and that has yet to be seen. All those things can be true. However, here on my YouTube channel, on my podcast, we are on the Justin Fields hype train. I'm not completely irrational, right? I know he has things to work on. I know he has room to improve. I think you are not being fair to Fields and the Bears if you don't think that Fields' running ability is a huge strength for this team and something that the offense relies on to open up plays. And Fields being a dynamic quarterback is something he's always going to be. Maybe as he gets older, that might dwindle and he might become more of a pocket passer. But right now and for the foreseeable future, Fields is going to be a dynamic quarterback. He's going to have an internal clock, and when he knows it's time to run, he's going to run. Sometimes there's going to be players open that maybe when we watch the All-22 or we see it on TV briefly, we say, oh, Kmet over there was open. Well, guess what? Sometimes he's not going to see Kmet open because his internal timer goes off and he books it and he gets another 15 yards. Is that always the correct thing to do? I don't know. I'm not an NFL quarterback right now. Justin Fields played phenomenal football last year. No, it wasn't the quarterback play you want to see out of a quarterback, but that doesn't mean it wasn't good play. Yes, he can improve as a passer, but the amount of runs he had last year, the amount of touchdowns he had last year, you can't say that isn't impressive. You can't say that that's not something the Bears have ever had before because we've never had a quarterback of this caliber before. And everyone, I think, is so used to not having a good quarterback on this Bears team in ever that we critique every little thing. We know Justin Fields can throw. We know he has a great deep arm, a great deep ball. We know that he needs to work on the quick game. So far, in my opinion, in training camp and in preseason, he's shown he has improved the quick game. There is room for improvement for getting the ball out a little quicker. I do think he's making his progressions, and I think the last preseason game, he was making some good reads. Wide receivers, in my opinion, weren't really getting open. There was one instance where I thought someone was open that he could have thrown to, but all the other times, the wide receivers weren't getting open. He had two passes where Kmet could have caught it and Khalil Herbert could have caught it, and they should have caught it. And he did purposely throw the ball a little low to DJ Moore. He did purposely throw the ball a little low to Kmet to get around defenders. He did purposely throw the ball ahead of Khalil Herbert, and it hit him in his hands and was almost deflected for an interception because that's always Justin Fields' luck. But luckily, there was no interception, but Khalil should have caught that. In general, Justin Fields, in my opinion, is a good quarterback, and I want to see him become a great quarterback. And I think he will, and I think we have to have patience as Bears fans for that to happen. We also have to remember Justin Fields isn't going to magically be this crazy improved quarterback by the third preseason game. The season hasn't even started yet. He needs to build chemistry with these wide receivers, with these running backs. He needs to build chemistry with this offensive line, who's not even the full offensive line, isn't even out yet. I mean, guys, we got to take a chill pill here. It's going to take a few games before the Bears offense gets into their mojo again. It's going to take some chemistry building to build up throughout the first few games, okay? He's not going to just magically be this quarterback everyone wants him to be. And if you're expecting Justin Fields to just be the straight drop back passer, he's never going to be that. Justin Fields is not a Tom Brady. He's not a Manning. He is not someone who just sits there and distributes all the time. And that's okay because something he's great at is running the damn ball, and he's going to do that. So we have to let it. We have to allow him time to progress. I think it's fair if you had expectations for him to just wow you away in training camp and preseason. In my opinion, I don't think those were necessarily fair expectations because he hasn't had the fairest start. He hasn't had enough around him to be able to do that. However, I understand those were your expectations, but I just preach patience and let's let our QB develop and let's let him light up the NFL this year. Okay? I also just want to say apologies for the sun. It obviously has moved since I started filming. Now there's this giant white space behind me. I don't know how much I love this, but we got a bright podcast today. So the preseason games are over. That means it's time for all of us to take a deep breath and just prepare for week 1 versus the Green Bay Packers. In my opinion, it is almost a must-win game. I really, really hope we are prepared. I feel like the team's a little rusty. I'm not going to lie. I do feel like we have the more talented roster. However, and Green Bay does have a history of choking the first game. However, Jordan Love and the Packers seem to have a decent showing last night for their last preseason game. Once again, it's preseason, doesn't mean anything. I also think Love was playing against some second stringers, so take whatever. Everything with a grain of salt. But I am a little nervous. I don't think anyone's blowing anyone out of the water this game. I think there's going to be a lot of mistakes on both teams' parts. I think it's going to be a close game. I just hope the Bears sneak away with the win on this one. Like I said earlier, I think as the season goes on, the Bears are going to build chemistry. I don't think the Bears are going to come out week 1 guns a-blazing and just annihilate and be the super dominant offense. I think it's going to take some time to build, and then I do anticipate by game 4, 5, 6, 7, we really start to get cooking. I don't think that's going to be week 1. I would love it to be, but I don't think it's going to be, and I think it's going to be a close game. And I'm a bit nervous, but I have faith in Justin Fields and Flus and the Bears and Getsy, and we're winning this game week 1 versus the Packers. I will be doing a little game prep expectations video, a little pregame show podcast before the first game of the season. So look out for that because that is coming soon. Next week, we have the Bears predictions. Officially, we'll be doing my season's predictions, win and loss record for the season. It's happening. It's here. Let's find out what my nutball head thinks here on the Bears record. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I really appreciate the support. Thank you for whatever you're listening on. And let's see the Bears win week 1 versus the Green Bay Packers. I'm your host, Alexis Jade, and this has been the Shecago Bears.